I'm Haley B. Miller, and this is Ohio Politics Explained, a podcast where you give us 15 minutes and we give you all the news you need to sound smart and impress your friends. Welcome to a special episode of Ohio Politics Explained. Today is all about school vouchers. 2 years ago, Ohio did what few other states have done and opened the program to anyone who wants to go to private school. School choice advocates were thrilled, but public schools became very worried that they would lose a lot of money. So what's the reality today? My colleagues Aaron Glenn and Donovan Hunt dug into that question, and they're here to help break it down. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, happy to be here.
And Donovan, welcome to your first OPE.
Happy to be here too. Thanks for inviting me on.
So, once upon a time, Ohio gave vouchers to students with autism or special needs, students in Cleveland, and students in low-performing schools or districts. That last one is called Ed Choice, and that is what lawmakers expanded starting with the 23-24 school year. Can you guys explain how this works? Like, if I want my kid to go to private school, how do I apply for a voucher? How much money do I get?
Yeah, so it is on a sliding scale. If you are in an Ed Choice expansion area, typical Ed Choice is for parents in specific school districts that are considered not doing as well as others. Columbus, Akron are considered in those districts, and it's on a sliding scale based on your family's income.
Yeah, so families that are making less than $145,000 for a family of four would receive a voucher for about $6,000 if the student is in kindergarten through 8th grade, and about $8,000 if the student is in high school.
Okay. And I would imagine once you add all that up, giving money to these families is not cheap. Ohio is going to spend $439.1 million this year and exceed $1 billion by 2027. Is this translating to more students in private school?
Well, that's what you'd expect to see, but when we compared private school enrollment numbers to the amount of Ed Choice voucher recipients, in the first school year of the expansion program, private school enrollment jumped by just 2%, while the percentage of people receiving Ed Choice vouchers grew by 240%. So you see a way bigger jump in the voucher recipients, which suggests that the majority of students who are using these vouchers were already enrolled in private schools.
And that's not what backers of this said was going to happen, right? I mean, the idea was to get students who maybe don't have access to these kind of resources to be able to go to private school.
Right. So the Center for Christian Virtue, which is a prominent lobbying group here in Columbus, argued in favor of expanding vouchers. And in their testimony before the state legislatures, they said that this was an opportunity for parents to have choice to choose to send their children to private schools. It was supposed to open up opportunities for parents to choose between two schools to send their children. So we spoke to Troy McIntosh with the Center for Christian Virtue about the data we've seen so far, and he said it's, what is expected to see in the first year of the expansion, and that he expects the numbers will settle down a little bit in the subsequent years of the program.
Yeah, and, speaking of Troy, he also made his pitch that you alluded to for school vouchers. Here's what he had to say about why he feels like this is important.
So rather than the government compelling and controlling the education, often in ways that are very diametrically opposed to a family's beliefs about child raising, about, worldview, all those types of things, this empowers the families to make the decision. This is the kind of education we want for our kids. And we think that the evidence bears out that the system works a lot better when you give parents that ability at the micro level.
So public school advocates, on the other hand, believe vouchers are draining money from all students. Tara Polanski felt so strongly about it that she sent her child to a private school in Columbus without a voucher.
I don't think my child's education is more important than anybody else's, and I don't want to use public money for that. And I think for me as well, we made a choice to send our kid to religious school, and despite the breakdowns that are happening, I think separation of church and state is incredibly important.
What else did you hear from critics of this program, and how are they pushing back?
Yeah, the main source of, I guess if you want to call it accountability measures, has been the Vouchers Hurt Ohio lawsuit, and that is a lawsuit that is challenging the constitutionality of the entire program, saying that it does not meet the Ohio Constitution and its requirement for a well-funded public education.
Yeah, and then critics have also noted that private schools aren't subject to the same kinds of testing and audits that public schools are. So you see not just parents, but also legislators considering how to make this program more transparent and accountable. There's been a number of amendments to the budget suggested to create a tiered system so that vouchers are based on family income and that there's more tiers within the program. Another amendment would create a database or a scorecard system similar to the one that public schools have so that parents could, when they're making this choice, actually compare test scores between their local schools.
Interesting. As I was reading your story, there are a lot of really frustrated school officials. The Akron treasurer, sounds like is constantly laying out the numbers for his district about how this is affecting them, how much money they're losing because of school vouchers. Did you hear from any families who have benefited from this program, who have, maybe this has opened doors for them that maybe weren't open before?
Well, the main thing we've heard from other families isn't necessarily that they wouldn't make the same choice. It's more that this is going to help enable the choice that they have. And the data has kind of shown that similar trend. Whereas maybe if this is a big priority for someone to send their kid to a private school, that they would maybe spend that money regardless, but they're not sacrificing other things like maybe college tuition down the line.
So, as you kind of alluded to, Aaron, this fight is not going to be over anytime soon. It's happening in budget negotiations as we speak. The Ohio House proposed budget would create savings accounts for students who attend non-chartered, non-public schools, and would also expand some of these Ed Choice scholarships. Do we know the price tag for some of this? Is the program just going to keep getting more expensive?
Well, yeah, we know in the governor's proposed budget that the voucher program as is would cost about $1 billion for the next 2 fiscal years. And there's also a $100 million cut to public schools. So, yeah, we can expect to see that there would be even more expensive with educational savings accounts because I believe the idea is that people could use them for homeschooling materials and not just private school tuition.
And these savings accounts, I believe CCV has referred to them as the gold standard for school choice.
Yep, and they've cited states like Arizona and Florida, which have similar programs. I know that in those states, there are similar concerns about transparency and accountability and making sure that the money is spent on what it's supposed to be spent on.
If you want more information about school vouchers and how this debate is affecting taxpayers, you can check out Aaron and Donovan's story on any of our websites. And like we said, this is not going to be the last time we hear about this issue.